Avoidants form attachments through a completely different process than other attachment styles, requiring specific conditions and psychological elements that honor their need for autonomy while gradually building emotional connection through trust, intellectual respect, and demonstrated reliability. Understanding how avoidants get attached reveals why traditional relationship approaches often fail with them, and why successful attachment requires patience, sophistication, and respect for their unique psychological architecture. Their attachment process moves from intellectual appreciation to emotional investment rather than the reverse, making their bond formation slower but potentially deeper and more stable once established. The avoidant attachment process is fundamentally different because it must overcome years of defensive conditioning that has taught them to associate emotional connection with danger, vulnerability with weakness, and dependence with loss of self. Their attachment formation requires gradual proof that connection can enhance rather than threaten their autonomy, that vulnerability can be safe rather than dangerous, and that another person can be trusted with their authentic self without judgment, pressure, or attempts at change. Unlike anxious attachment styles that form quickly through emotional intensity, or secure styles that develop naturally through consistent availability, avoidant attachment requires specific psychological conditions that respect their defensive needs while slowly creating safety for deeper connection. This process cannot be rushed, forced, or manipulated without triggering their withdrawal mechanisms and confirming their beliefs about the dangers of emotional investment. Element 1. Intellectual connection as the foundation. Avoidants begin their attachment process through intellectual rather than emotional connection, requiring mental stimulation and respect for their analytical nature before any emotional bonding can occur. They need to feel understood and appreciated for their minds, perspectives, and insights before they can risk emotional vulnerability. This intellectual foundation provides the safety and respect necessary for them to gradually lower their emotional defenses. The intellectual connection must feel genuine rather than strategic, involving real appreciation for their thoughts, ideas, and analytical capabilities. Avoidance can sense when someone is performing intellectual interest to gain emotional access versus genuinely valuing their mental contributions. This authenticity is crucial because their trust formation depends on believing that they're valued for their actual qualities rather than manipulated for emotional purposes. This intellectual phase often involves extended periods of conversation about topics unrelated to the relationship itself: philosophy, psychology, current events, professional interests, or creative pursuits. These discussions allow the avoidant to assess the other person's mental compatibility, emotional maturity, and respect for complexity without the pressure of romantic or emotional expectations. The intellectual connection also provides a safe pathway for the avoidant to share aspects of themselves without immediate vulnerability. They can reveal their values, perspectives, and personality through intellectual discussion while maintaining emotional distance. This gradual self-revelation allows them to test whether their authentic thoughts and opinions are met with acceptance or judgment. During this phase, the person seeking attachment with an avoidant must demonstrate their own intellectual sophistication and emotional regulation. They need to engage thoughtfully with complex topics, maintain their own perspectives while respecting the avoidant's viewpoints, and show that they can handle disagreement without becoming emotional or demanding immediate resolution. Element 2. Demonstrated reliability without pressure. Avoidants require extensive proof of reliability and consistency before they can begin to trust someone with emotional attachment. This reliability must be demonstrated through actions rather than words over extended periods that include various life circumstances and challenges. The key element is that this reliability cannot come with emotional pressure or expectations for reciprocal investment. Demonstrated reliability includes consistency in communication patterns, following through on commitments, maintaining the same emotional temperature regardless of the avoidance behavior, and being predictably available without being demanding about the avoidance availability. This consistency must persist through the avoidance testing behaviors and withdrawal periods without becoming conditional or punitive. The reliability requirement extends to emotional consistency, where the person doesn't become dramatically different based on the avoidance level of engagement or emotional availability. They maintain their own emotional center and continue their own life pursuits, regardless of whether the avoidant is being distant or connected. This emotional stability proves that they won't become emotionally dependent or demanding. This element also includes reliability in respecting the avoidance boundaries and autonomy without trying to gradually push for more access or intimacy. The person must demonstrate that they can maintain appropriate boundaries consistently rather than using reliability as a strategy to eventually gain greater emotional access or control over the relationship dynamic. The avoidant watches this reliability over time to determine whether it's authentic character or strategic behavior designed to earn their trust for manipulation purposes. Only sustained reliability that persists through various circumstances and doesn't increase in emotional demands creates the foundation necessary for avoidant attachment formation. Element 3. Respect for autonomy and independence. Perhaps the most crucial element in avoidant attachment formation is consistent respect for their autonomy and independence without attempting to gradually erode these boundaries or change their fundamental nature. The avoidant must feel that their need for space, independence, and self-direction is not only tolerated, but genuinely appreciated and valued by their potential attachment figure. This respect manifests as understanding that their withdrawal periods aren't personal rejections, but necessary emotional regulation, that their need for individual pursuits and friendships isn't evidence of lack of commitment, and that their independence is a strength rather than a limitation to be overcome. The person must demonstrate that they view the avoidance autonomy as attractive rather than threatening. The respect for independence also includes not trying to become the avoidant's primary source of emotional support, social connection, or life direction. They must maintain their own independent life while appreciating the avoidant's independence rather than competing with it or trying to replace it with emotional interdependence. This element requires the person to have their own secure sense of self and life direction that doesn't require the avoidant's participation or validation. They must demonstrate that they can be happy and fulfilled whether or not the avoidant chooses deeper connection, which paradoxically makes the avoidant more likely to choose that connection because it doesn't feel threatening or obligatory. The avoidant needs to see that connecting more deeply won't result in loss of their freedom, increased emotional demands, or pressure to change their fundamental nature. This requires consistent demonstration that the person appreciates them exactly as they are, rather than hoping they'll become more emotionally available or dependent over time. Element 4. Gradual emotional safety through non-judgment. Avoidants can only begin to form emotional attachment when they experience consistent non-judgmental acceptance of their emotional limitations, defensive behaviors, and authentic personality traits. This non-judgmental stance, this emotional safety also requires the person to avoid making the avoidant feel guilty or deficient for their emotional limitations. They can't express disappointment about the avoidant's emotional availability, make comparisons to other relationships, or suggest that the avoidant needs therapy or personal work to be suitable for relationship. This acceptance must feel unconditional rather than conditional on eventual change. The non-judgmental environment allows the avoidant to gradually share more authentic aspects of themselves without fear of criticism, advice, or attempts at emotional healing. They begin to trust that their vulnerable moments won't be used against them or create expectations for increased emotional availability in the future. Creating emotional safety also involves the person demonstrating their own emotional regulation and maturity, rather than expecting the avoidant to manage their emotional needs. The avoidant must see that emotional expression doesn't lead to chaos, demands, or overwhelming intensity that they would need to manage or escape from. Element 5. Appreciation for their unique value. Avoidants form attachment to people who genuinely appreciate their unique qualities and contributions, rather than focusing on their limitations or trying to access their hidden emotional depths. This appreciation must feel authentic and specific, rather than generic praise designed to encourage greater emotional availability. This appreciation includes recognizing their analytical capabilities, problem-solving skills, reliability in practical matters, loyalty once trust is established, and their ability to provide stability and consistency in relationships. The person must see and value what the avoidant actually offers, rather than focusing on what they don't provide emotionally. The appreciation also extends to understanding that the avoidant's way of expressing care and love is valuable even when it doesn't match conventional romantic expressions. Their practical support, consistent presence, thoughtful actions, and quiet loyalty represent genuine expressions of attachment that deserve recognition and gratitude rather than being overlooked in favor of more dramatic emotional displays. This element requires the person to have sophisticated enough understanding of relationships to recognize that different people express and experience love in different ways. They must value the avoidant's natural love language rather than trying to convert them to more emotionally expressive forms of affection. The avoidant needs to feel that their authentic self is not only acceptable, but actually desirable and valuable to their potential attachment figure. This shifts their relationship paradigm from feeling like they need to change to earn love, to feeling like they're appreciated for who they actually are. Element 6. Proven emotional maturity and self-sufficiency. Avoidants only form deep attachments to people who demonstrate emotional maturity and self-sufficiency that matches or exceeds their own capabilities. They need to respect their potential attachment figure's emotional intelligence, life management skills, and ability to handle challenges independently before they can risk emotional investment. This emotional maturity includes the ability to handle conflict constructively, process disappointment without becoming dramatic, maintain perspective during challenging times, and support others without becoming emotionally overwhelmed or dependent. The avoidant must see that emotional connection with this person won't require them to become an emotional caretaker or manager. Self-sufficiency demonstration includes having independent sources of happiness and fulfillment, maintaining financial and practical independence, and possessing the life skills necessary to handle various challenges without requiring rescue or excessive support. The avoidant needs to know that attachment won't create dependence or obligation to provide care beyond their comfort level. The emotional maturity also includes understanding and accepting the avoidance attachment style without trying to fix, change, or heal them. The person must demonstrate that they can love someone with emotional limitations without making those limitations their personal project or source of frustration. This element ensures that the avoidant feels they're entering an equal partnership rather than becoming responsible for someone who needs them more than they need that person. This equality makes attachment feel safe rather than threatening to their autonomy and self-image. Element 7. Consistent patience without expectation. The avoidant attachment process requires extraordinary patience that doesn't come with underlying expectations for eventual change or reciprocal investment. This patience must feel genuine and sustainable rather than strategic, waiting for the avoidant to eventually provide more emotional availability or commitment. True patience includes understanding that the avoidant's timeline for emotional development and attachment formation may be significantly longer than other attachment styles. The person must be genuinely comfortable with slow development rather than secretly hoping to accelerate the process through perfect behavior or patient waiting. This patience also extends to accepting that the avoidant may never reach the same level of emotional expression or availability as other attachment styles, and being genuinely satisfied with the level of connection they can provide. The patience can't be contingent on eventual transformation, but must be acceptance of the person as they are. The consistency requirement means this patience must persist through the avoidance testing behaviors, withdrawal periods, and seeming lack of progress in emotional availability. The person must demonstrate that their patience isn't conditional on the avoidance behavior, but represents their genuine appreciation for the relationship as it exists. Element 8. Natural compatibility rather than effort. Avoidance forms strongest attachments when connection feels natural and effortless, rather than requiring significant work or adjustment from either person. They need to experience compatibility in communication styles, lifestyle preferences, values, and relationship expectations that doesn't require either person to significantly compromise their authentic nature. This natural compatibility includes similar needs for independence, respect for personal space, appreciation for intellectual connection, and comfort with less intensive emotional expression. When fundamental compatibility exists, the relationship enhances both people's lives without requiring either to abandon their natural preferences or defensive structures. The effortless quality also means that spending time together feels energizing rather than draining. That conversation flows naturally without forced emotional processing, and that both people can be authentically themselves without performance or accommodation that creates resentment over time. Natural compatibility allows the avoidant to experience relationship as enhancement rather than threat, addition rather than replacement, choice rather than obligation. This shifts their entire paradigm about what relationships can provide and makes attachment feel beneficial rather than dangerous to their well-being and autonomy. Understanding how avoidants get attached reveals that their process requires specific psychological conditions that honor their defensive needs while creating genuine safety for emotional connection. This attachment formation, while slower than other styles, can create profound and lasting bonds when the necessary elements are consistently provided by someone who genuinely appreciates and understands their unique psychological architecture.